today's video, we are taking a look at my growing space outside and check how the orchids I have placed there are growing in their new environment. It's still quite early morning and the day seems to be cloudy. It will get much brighter later on. In the meantime, I hope it won't be too dark to make this video. I have organized the orchids according to what I believe their requirements are. There are a few microclimates here. Some spots are warmer, others are cooler. There are places with more light, others with less. Around here, the light comes from two sides, south and west facing. If necessary, I could partially substitute the clay tiles on the roof by glass ones to get more light, but so far I don't think it's necessary. Let's imagine this is a huge windowsill. During the afternoon, the sun can get quite strong from this west side, and the protection I use are these fishing nets. I have several layers. I can add if it's too hot and remove them aside during the morning or if the day is cloudy. Up there is the shadiest spot, and it's also warm, although not too warm. It's the roof clay tiles that get warmed by the sun, and that is why I put the mini phalaenopsis out there. They live all mounted, and I hope they will do fine that way. It's an experience I'm doing this year. These two phals are quite nice. I bought them in the market expressly to mount them on this log, but they are quite beautiful. And the flowers are so delicate. Hanging here, we can see my zygopetalum. When I repotted it last October, the back bulb separated from the plant. But since it bloomed 1 year ago, it produced two new growths during the summer, plus another one more recently. The roots are growing quite nicely. However, I do not expect any blooms this year. It's potted in cork bark with some sphagnum and sponge rock. I bought this orchid 2 years ago, but it had no tag. It did not grow much for a very long time, but recently it has produced two nice growths. It never bloomed, and I do not know what it is. I guess it might be a Miltoniopsis for the shape of the pseudobulbs and the light color of the leaves. Maybe it will bloom soon. I hope so. I'm anxious to identify it. It's being grown in lacquer beds with water deposit. Another orchid in semi-hydro. This is Oncostel Geyser Gold. It's a beautiful, very beautiful bloomer, and the flowers are just lovely. I got it last year, and in the meantime it has produced 3 new growths. I don't know if I should expect some blooming this year. This little plant is Miltonia Sunset. This is a back bulb which fell off the main plant when I repotted it last summer. I was about to throw it away because the two leaves attached were getting so yellow. However, these bulbs still had some roots, so I decided to put it in water, and for my surprise, in winter, the leaves greened up and a new growth popped up. It looks so vigorous and it has lots of new roots, so I've put it in semi-hydro. This is Dendrobium lodigese. I bought it in a pot. It had lots of roots, but the canes were quite short. I decided to mount it, and I spaced the roots and the canes along this wood log. I hope that new canes will be produced and that the older ones get longer over the summer. This is Dendrobium aphyllum. It came in a pot, and when I took it out, I found out that there were two plants in it. That was a bit of a disappointment, but I suppose this plant will thrive well during the summer because it has one new growth here and another one which is quite bigger. On this mount I have two plants, both Dendrobium stardust, one from last year and another one that was offered to me this year. This orchid is commonly sold as a nobile, but in fact it has only 12% nobile in its parentage. Digging a bit in its past as a hybrid, we can find out that the dominant species is a cooler grower than the nobiles are, and that the next one requires less light. With this piece of information, I hope to do better with both these plants this year. I suppose I gave the smaller one too much light and heat last summer. This is Toulonia Charac Flowered Apple. I got it last October. Since then it put up two growths. One of them is stalling, but the newest, however, is growing quite fine. This is a bulbophyllum. This is my first experience with this genus. I only bought it recently, but so far so good. This is Dendrobium berryoda. It has been a cakey machine since last summer. It was pushing new growths when winter came, so I could not give it a winter rest. Also, I might have given it too much light last summer. There are a few things I really must correct in what concerns the care of this orchid. The miniature epidendrum I bought recently still doing fine. Still some blooms to go. Almost spent most of them. Dendrobium fleckeri is also doing fine. At first I thought it was going to bloom, but these things on top of the canes are going so slow that I wonder. Let's see now my Brazilian orchids. They were first potted in very tiny pots with sphagnum moss and perlite. They needed the humidity first because they had no roots and also because their natural habitat is very humid. However, in spite of that requirements, they still need to dry out in their medium, and I really could not achieve that. The pot simply refused to lose humidity in spite of them being kept in the blowing wind. So I decided to hang them, although getting them extra humidity, as you can see here. This is a primary hybrid, Sophronitis coccinea, crossed with Sophronitis mantiqueira. They both grow in areas with lots of fog and high humidity during all the year. It is a very small plant, but already blooming size, or almost, so I was told. I bought it from Ecogenera, bare-rooted, but it's doing all right, already with a new growth and new root tips showing. This is Laelia pumila. It's a very small species. However, this one is supposed to be blooming size already. This plant usually grows on trees in very humid forests along rivers and in swampy areas in Brazil. So it needs very high humidity and should never be allowed to dry out completely. This setting is an attempt to recreate the humid conditions in her habitat. I was getting kind of sad because I saw that although her new growth is still firm, the plant was getting dehydrated. But I just could see that there is hope for this plant. Can you see the root tip over there? Wonderful, that's great. This is Laelia laucasiana. This is another miniature-sized, cool-growing Brazilian orchid. It grows on fully exposed rocky ledges in high altitude. And I know that it needs lots of humidity around the roots. The problem is that it has no roots at all. My hopes are on the new growth. Because it might trigger the formation of roots. I must give her time, I suppose. And I just noticed that we are halfway. I don't have a very big collection, but it takes its time. So I'll make a part 2. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.